know if I want.
Well, good afternoon. It's Sunday, and you've got Connecting the Dots with DeeAnn and my very dear friend Cathy. Cathy, I call her my college roommate, but technically my first roommate was my Hopi and Navajo roommate for 3 years. But Cathy and I were in the same education block, and we had many, many classes together. We were in many group project teams, and we technically were roommates our first year after college.
Right.
So, Cathy, do
Yes.
you want to say any words about like what you know of my family and your side of it?
Your family, especially Nita and Lowell, were just like second parents to me when I was in Phoenix doing my student teaching, and just learned many things from the three of you that set me on this path. And I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, we were doing like kind of an experimental phase where we were reading on things and trying some different things, and we experimented on Cathy. You want to tell them some of the things?
There was Carillion photography, where you guys had done image on my hand, which was quite fascinating for all of us, because I think you guys also showed me some other that you had done, and mine was glowing quite a bit more than others. I don't remember them showing like yours or theirs. It's kind of a little bit of a blur, but I remember mine just kind of standing out. I remember the crystal at the front of your guys's by the front door. I asked, what was that do? Protect the house? And you're like, yes. And I was like, okay. Again, first introduction to things. And it took me about 2 weeks of filling around where I felt where the energy vortex was on the crystal. And you told me that, yes, I had found it. And I remember experimenting with muscle testing and, many more, but those are the main ones that I remember.
Yeah, so we've been at this for a really long time, and I think Cathy surpassed me in her knowledge of crystals. And then during COVID, of course, we've enjoyed like finding out things and then like calling each other, because we're now thousands of miles apart geography wise, but we're not apart when we want to talk about different topics and things. And in going through my mom's things, one of the things I found was this information from Willie Whitefeather. He, Cathy doesn't remember coming to too many of the groups we had on Friday nights because she was really busy student teaching. But we used to have these gatherings at our house on Friday evenings. And I think sometimes you went home and stuff on the weekends too. But we would have people come by, and that's where we were doing some of our reading. And then we would share, and then we would all go out to dinner afterwards, even if it was 11 o'clock at night. We'd go to Denny's. And my stepdad was famous for saying, let's go get a biscuit and a bean. That's what he called it. So that we would sometimes talk on Friday night till 1 a.m. It was just crazy. We enjoyed all this. And then I would share a lot of it with Cathy. And then through the years, and Cathy would get into things. She's actually like Reiki certified. And now I do tuning forks for healing. We just kind of keep having these common themes, but there's times in our lives where our lives were very consuming and we couldn't do as much. And then we come back to it, and then we go away for a minute, we come back to it. But it's sort of neat because we're back to it at the same time. And we're like, why do we ever stop? Right, Kath?
Right. Well, just got busy with, I got busy raising kids and being caught up in teaching that I didn't have time. I mean, it was on the back of my mind, and I tried here and there, but I just didn't have time. Now I'm retired and I have time.
Yeah, you do. And it's kind of neat because we never really lost it. We just had to set it down sometimes. We still have so many things in common. We both survived breast cancer. Cathy's had that twice. So that was another thing that brought us together. But it's so neat to share with somebody who knows you and knows your family and the story. So Willie Whitefeather was one of those characters that would come to our house on Friday nights. Excuse me. And he was working on writing this children's book for his grandchildren. And so I'm going to just share some select stories out of here. a little bit, and then I'm going to share a PowerPoint, some things so you can kind of like learn a little bit more who he is. Oops, I got to hit the share button. Hold on. Now I've lost myself here. I'll find the share button here in a second. I'm not perfect at this, folks. Come on, where's the share button? It's here. I don't know if I need to make the chat go away. Hang on. Stop. I don't want to stop. Apps.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Zoom.
And that wasn't quite what I want to do. Bear with me. Why don't you tell a story about them or anything while I'm finding the share button?
Let's see. Also, had gone to the harmonic convention. Was that 87 or 88? And that was quite interesting. I remember one of the speakers was talking about fairies and wasn't talking very nicely about them. And I was not happy, and you had to calm me down. I don't even know if I even believed in fairies at that time. Anyway, it took a little bit of time for you to calm me down and said, I'm sure the fairies that you're associated with are good fairies. He doesn't know everything that he's talking about. So,
yeah. And then now tell them about like how you see fairies.
Yeah, I see little sparkles, and they can snap me out of a bad mood, and started seeing them in the 90s. Supposedly they've always been with me, or have been with me since I was a young child. And I have been talking with them, not that I'm hearing anything back, but asking them to move from the direction where I was seeing them in corners, just dusk and dawn, to moving up, and then seeing them around the house, now seeing them pretty much anywhere and everywhere. And it's not that I can go, I want to see them and they come forth. I don't know when they're gonna shine so that I can see them, but I'm having fun with that.
Pretty cool. And didn't you say that they're blue?
They are blue.
That's so neat. They're like little blue light, like illuminated blue.
Yeah.
Well, I found the share screen button. I don't know why it was eluding me earlier. So this is Willie Whitefeather. So I'm just calling this talk Willie Whitefeather with wisdom. I have done this in seminars before. So I do it a little bit differently. I give them handouts. And as I talk about certain symbols and stuff, I have people try to like keep track of them. And then there's like a little quiz at the end. I won't do that to you guys.
Thank you.
Now I got to get this screen to share. So that was Willie. And then how did I get interested in all this? Well, I mentioned before, Cathy was my roommate. I had a roommate named Terry. She was half Hopi and half Navajo. And you know how it is, you talk till the wee hours of the night when you're roommates. And she was telling me that the Hopis have like all this really rich culture, and that they believed in the Great Flood. And like now I know that there's like over 50, like over 500 cultures that have a Great Flood story in it, but I didn't know that then. And the Great Flood story just got my attention very vividly, because I thought, wow, I mean, it must have really happened if they have it in their culture too. And she said that they believe that the ant people came and like took them underground, and they shared their food with them to the point that I guess they would have had little rounder little tummies and things, and that ants have a skinny torso. And if you think about the segmented body of an ant, I mean, it doesn't have a pot belly. It does have a really skinny little torso. And that's supposedly symbolic of when the ant people shared their food to the point of they weren't eating enough, but everybody survived. And then, here's a depiction carved in stone of, maybe what the ant people look like. I also had the feeling that maybe they were extraterrestrial, when she was telling me that story. And then in some of Willie's work, he draws a picture of ladies with this bun-like thing. And we've seen this, Princess Leia in Star Wars had that kind of a thing. And some people have found these statues and things that have it. So the Hopis have continued this. This is like deep in their culture, but some people think that they might have even been around Atlanteans, or they might have been the Atlanteans. So that's where they find this connection. And I think in the past, there was a feeling that, people couldn't have traveled from continent to continent way back when in ancient times, but maybe they could. Maybe they had means to do that. So again, Willie was definitely a friend of my family. He was a Cherokee Indian. He's shaman. He's actually also got some, can't think, it's a South American, I don't know, in him too. Definitely a teacher. He's a cartoonist. Like, he wouldn't probably call himself that, but you should see what I'm seeing. He's got pictures drawn all over him, and they're very much in a cartoonist style. He was a researcher like we are. Cathy and I say we like to go down rabbit holes, but he definitely did that too. And he connected all kinds of things. And so my connecting the dots is really in some ways inspired by him. And then a fantastic author and storyteller. So here's something where he wrote, Asiego kind of means like, well, hello. And, Lowell was my stepdad. So here's a note, like some of the things that I'm sharing. He would send them to us. So this is something that he sent to us. And here's a little drawing of the feathers, lots of little drawings. And then here down the road, he got his things published. So here's his survival guide, and you can kind of see in the green at the bottom, there's one of his cartoons. So that was drawn by him. And here's some more stuff. Like he wrote this for children, this one. So like, I learned this when we were hiking in the desert, like red and yellow, kill a fella, but he has it as red touch yellow, him deadly fella, red touch black, him bad fella. So there's different kinds of snakes, and several of them do have that red, black, yellow pattern. You got to know which one. So it says yellow touch black, friend of Jack. So if you don't know that and you pick up the wrong snake, it's a poisonous situation. And here's a little girl that actually survived a car crash who had read his book. So she employed some of the things that he said. So how wonderful for him. He would be so proud. He wrote another book for children on the rivers. There's other books. That's another picture of him in the background out there. So it's like, but back in the day, he was just getting ready to do this. There's a picture of him too. I'm not going to play this YouTube video, but if you were to, stop the screen and write it down, it's well worth watching that. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Let me go back to that. I'm going to read some of the stories in here. Again, it's kind of like reading a children's book. And I'm just going to show you that, they are. Look at the wonderful cartoons and such that he's got there. It's a little bit hard to show all of them in the books. The little holes are pulling through, and I'm kind of careful with the paper because this is paper we got back in the 90s. So it's a couple decades old. So I just wanted to start with this story here. So he drew a castle, and he's got the pilgrims leaving in a boat. He says in 1700, England had kings and queens who loved silver and gold, but not people. And poor people were called peasants. And he's got a little cartoon of a king walking by going, humph. And the peasants are saying, please, sir, just a little food or a coin. And the babies are crying that they're hungry in the background. He said, so the pilgrims left England and never even tried to right the wrongs of their government. The French people also had kings and queens and emperors, and a prison they called the Bastille. The French people had it up to here with the cruelty of you know what, this isn't, my meeting's going to end in 10 minutes. We might have to do a part 1 and a part 2. Okay. But the poor French people on July 14, 1786, they knocked down the Bastille and lived happily ever after. And he's making a reference to 14, which throughout here he will. He says, Viva la France. And he thought that would help them have peace and love. Meanwhile, King James in England was writing his version of the Bible. And the kids needed hope and dreams of a better world. And so maybe, did you see it? No, I've never seen one. but I have hope of seeing a unicorn. And this is where he introduces that there are unicorns in the Bible. And the first time when I was reading this to Cathy, we kind of freaked out. There are unicorns in the Bible. They're
Not,
mentioned a number of times.
yeah, 9 times.
9 times. And that's a dove. We'll come back to the dove. I got a little bit out of order, but I had it in here. Perhaps not. I'll go back. But yeah, there's definitely, you can see some of his drawings there. Yeah, there's definitely, yeah, 9 times. So they left the unicorn in the Bible, but to the Native Americans, the unicorn means hope. So in their culture, they actually saw the unicorn. I mean, they believed unicorns were real because in their culture, they had seen them, which we don't think about what might have been in North America. And later on, Cathy and I actually found a video where somebody was unearthing a unicorn skull, you know, like it in on their property. So it's like pretty outrageous. Nobody wants to think that happens, but it does. And so, and anyhow, after that, the Pilgrims came to America, and they broke treaties with the Indians. So they didn't keep their treaties very well. So people were made, the Native American people were made slaves, and so were the Black people. And in Europe in the 1800s, you just couldn't compete with slave labor. You know, they were free to pick cotton. They grew on stolen land. That's how the Native Americans looked at it. And America became number 1 in the world. So, you know, the Native Americans are looking at that like we did it on the backs of others. And it was free to them, but they were taking what wasn't supposed to belong to anyone, like the land. So the richest country in the world, and yet they killed the unicorn and replaced it with the wild bull musk ox. So in the Bible, depending on which version you have, if you look for musk ox, that's where the word unicorn was. In some later editions, they even took out the unicorn. But Cathy and I, we definitely found a number of places where it's still in different versions. So in all the new versions of the Bible, he tells us, you know, that's because your grandpa don't take no bull. He's so funny with some of these things. But I'm not going to get too deep, but he talks about the Americas as being, they call them the Great Turtle Island. And he said there's spirals on the rocks when they draw the turtle. So I'm gonna go through some of the slides here because I don't want to end. They also talked about a dove. So there's a dove that's over, and interestingly enough, Cathy and I were reading the Keys of Enoch, and this page is from the Keys of Enoch. And if you look at this drawing, it's over North America, but it does resemble a dove with, you know, flying south, so to speak. The beak is down and the wings are what's facing up. So it's very interesting. They see the dove, and in the Keys of Enoch, they talk about the dove, but it seems like this is going to be landing places. What, maybe aliens are going to come land here? This is a very ancient part of the Bible that was like kept from us. So we're very wondering what the dove is. I know I've heard Juan O'Savin mention the White Dove Society. So it'd be interesting one day to know more about the dove. Even Nikola Tesla, this lady that wrote this book about him, called him the light bearer to planet Earth, and talked of the return of the dove. So they do see animals, they see doves, they see other things. Here's something that someone's pointed out of an owl, and this is the United States Capitol.
Wow.
Laid out like an owl, who knew?
I hadn't seen that before. Wow.
And then when we talked about the Bible being edited, Sir Francis Bacon was the editor of the King James Bible that was printed back in 1611. And the first edition of it was prepared under Masonic supervision, and it bears a lot of Mason's marks. So it's kind of interesting. But I think we better stop here because I'm worried about getting into a story, and we'll do a part 2. Okay, so we'll have to post 2 of them today. Okay, thanks, folks. Let me stop sharing, and we'll make a part 2. We'll be back in a few.